The Caregiver.
Hi, welcome to the podcast The Caregiver. My name is Ronit Schwartz-Shamai, and in this chapter I'm interviewing Shelley Whitehead, who is a coach on how to get out of bereavement. The psychiatrist who recommended me of Shelley told me she's very good at her job. She helps people to get out of grief, and she's so good that all of them get married. Well, I wasn't sure if that's a good cause. However, I was sure enough that she would be a very interesting person to talk to, and I was right. Good morning.
Good morning, Ronit.
Hi, Shelley. Today I'm in London with Shelley Whitehead, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay.
Your English is much better, so anyway, it's better that you will speak.
Well, I know it's important for you because your podcast goes worldwide.
Okay.
And I'm Shelley J. Whitehead. I live in London. I'm a coach. I'm well known for helping heal broken hearts. So what that really means is I work with bereaved, dumped, and divorced men and women all over the world. Particularly, I work with all endings and helping people with new beginnings. And also how to navigate and transition endings.
That's a good, I think you have probably a very special point of view, and that's why I wanted to actually interview you. First of all, how did you reach this occupation?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Of like a grief coaching, it's not like a doctor or, a normal
No.
work.
My own life has been very much about coping with many endings. I'm well familiar with grief and loss, and it particularly started when my husband was diagnosed with kidney cancer in the year 2000, and we spent 4 years transitioning that dying phase for 4 years until he passed away. And some years later, my life changed, and I moved to London. And a girlfriend of mine, who's a wonderful clinical psychologist, had been speaking about NLP, and I was wondering, what is this NLP? And I went online, and there must have been an affiliate link to a website for coaching. So I studied my first coaching qualification here in London.
Oh, wow.
And when I started coaching, I worked particularly with bereavement. And, years later, I added on many other tools from NLP to hypnotherapy. I then trained for 6 years with a woman called Heidi Schleifer, who's also well known in Israel, to work with couples, with relationships. And then I did another coaching qualification, but my own life in dealing with loss, of my husband. And then along the way, I've lost my parents, and they're all forms of loss that come into bereavement coaching. Loss of anything we love can be a profound and really terrible loss, and people get so stuck in grief. And my intention is to help them to not get stuck, but to create lives that they love again.
To understand that they still need to live.
Exactly. That even when you're going through a dying phase, there's still life. And that was something we particularly embraced while my husband was ill, that we should live, and we should live a big life, a full life, and not leave a stone, as we say in English, not leave a stone unturned. Whatever issues there were, we wanted to address. The things that we hadn't done, we wanted to do. And at the same time, I have 3 children, to make sure that my children were living life and doing what was normal was so important.
How old were they at the time?
How old were they? My son was 8 years old when cancer was diagnosed. My daughter was 15, and the other daughter was 12. And when he died, my son was 12, my daughter was 16, and my other daughter was 18.
So it's important, I think, also to convey the message for them that it's important to keep on living because they're very young, huh?
It was very important. And how we did it was even more important.
By what do you mean?
How we did it.
Yes.
Okay. This girlfriend of mine who is a clinical psychologist looked at me one day and she said, "Your son is angry. I really recommend he sees a therapist." And because I trust her and love her very much, I looked at her and I said, "Who? Where?" And she set up therapists for the children in a specific center, and they dealt with bereavement. So I arrived with the children, for the children to see their therapist, and then it was announced that my therapist was waiting for me too. And she was an angel of therapists. She really helped prepare me for death. Not only were they imago therapists specializing in relationships, but also bereavement therapists. And she had been through loss herself, and she really helped me put into my life the very practical steps on how to support my children, how to now suddenly take care of all the finances and make all those big decisions. So she said to me at one stage, "We're doing a lot of pre-grief work so that you can be prepared, because you've got to be standing strong when your husband is no longer here to take care of your children."
It was more, by the way, practical things, or not only, or?
It was both. It was the emotional support, dealing with the fears, dealing with the uncertainty, dealing with anything that I wasn't even aware of, plus the practicalities. So it was so helpful. So we can look at it from a therapeutic point, but then it became coaching as well, with a very defined how do you want to feel? What does your end result look like?
Yes.
How will it be for you? And that is why I went into coaching.
You wanted to assist other people?
And I'd learned so much from my therapist. Her name is Madge. She really was, had a profound influence on my life.
So it means that actually you're saying interesting thing, but you're saying that you can get prepared. I mean, because some people express, I think, what happens in their life. They don't want to deal with it. Okay, we have cancer, we have some problem, whatever, and we just suppress it.
Yes.
And that's it. And we don't talk about it. So it's the opposite.
And grief goes through stages. It's not so linear that, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross spoke about those grief stages, and the first stage is that shock, the denial. And a lot of people can get stuck there.
Through the old.
Yeah, and they don't want to deal with it, because I've worked with people going through this. In fact, even terminally ill people who come to me to end their life in a very, very specific way, to make sure that they're doing all that they can before they die. So it's quite a sacred place to be, to help someone through that process of really looking at life and whatever life is left, but also the individuals who are taking care of the one who is ill, and how to help them to live. Because it's like being on that aeroplane. It's always the analogy that is so used. If the oxygen masks fall down, stop worrying about everybody else. Put your own mask on first, because then you have capacity. You
to assist someone else.
Exactly. You can breathe.
Yes.
So that's the first part.
So actually, do they turn to you also in these stages? I mean, people realize that, okay, someone is sick and I need to take care of him and I need to talk to someone, or many people are more in the repressing mode, or is there any statistics? Or
I don't know what the statistics are, because I know that when somebody comes through my door, they're in a lot of pain, generally emotional pain, uncertainty, and they need help. So the ones who come to me or contact me are the ones who are saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? This is how I'm feeling. And that's what we start to unpack and to find a process and a way for them to move forward. Very specifically, we call it bespoke, for that individual.
Did it happen that some people have left and said, okay, I cannot deal with it. I need to keep on suppressing?
In the 16 years that I've been doing this, I haven't experienced that, because we always find a way. Everybody has something inside them. So we tap into those essences and the resources that they have. And I always work with a very specific formula. It's called the 3 S's. We need a structure for every day. We need to find support. And then we need sunshine. Now, sunshine is metaphorical. Remember, I live in London.
Okay, yes, sunshine in London. Yes, you need to travel a lot, huh?
we have some sunshine today, but it's metaphorical. What we mean by sunshine is that little bit of something that lifts your state from down here to up there. Everything, every single day, as long as it's morally and ethically legal. We don't want to go into substances and behaviors that, really are not, good sunshine. We're talking about the exercise, possibly something that somebody loves to do, where they tune into maybe the first thing in the morning, they find a TED talk or a podcast to listen to.
Or maybe cook. If someone likes to cook, or
cooking or baking. For me, I love cooking and baking. Maybe it's that morning cup of coffee and a meditation. But just that sunshine that lifts the state from here to up there. Just tiny.
But you need to be very aware of that. You need to meditate it. You need to be very constant with that. That you need to be aware that each and every day you need to let the sunshine in, right?
You've got to let the sunshine in. You've got to have a structure to your day, and you must have support, 3 S's. With those 3 things, life takes on a different meaning, and you use the word there, consistent. We've got to be consistent with it, because this is how we get through things. You can't start it one day and then give up the next. It's pushing through with consistency that will give us the results.
But could you further explain about the structure and the support? What exactly do you mean?
I'll help you with that. So having a structure for every day, getting up at a regular time, having a routine, because routines work when we're dealing with something that is very challenging, like caring for a loved one who, really isn't doing well physically and emotionally or even mentally, because, disease and even cancers take different forms and affect people in different ways. But knowing that there's a structure, very simple. What time is breakfast? What time is, medication time? What time is bath time? Having our own structure, getting out for that very much needed exercise or walk to clear your head. Whatever forms part of that day. Some carers still need to work sometimes. They have a job to do, or they're little children that they've got to take care of. There's a structure for each day. The children go here, this time, that time, that time. This is where support comes in, because if someone is caretaking, they need another pair of hands to help care for the little ones, or even if they have a dog, the dog needs to be walked. Support is the neighbor next door, the friend, whoever it is around you that you will call your front row friends. These are the ones that you could call at 2:00 in the morning, and they will be there for you. So you got to determine there's 2 or 3 people in your life who are your support that you can call at any time, and it's not too much for them. Here comes a surprising thing. Very often when we're going through one of these huge challenges, the people that we think we can rely on are often the people that aren't there. And there comes that person out of the blue, who you never imagined would be there and have your back in such a beautiful way.
Really?
Be ready for some amazing surprises of people who suddenly appear. They're like angels in our lives. And there they are. They suddenly become part of that support structure. I have found this personally in my own life, and I see it in my clients' lives, that they thought they could rely on this one and that one, and suddenly
they disappear.
They do disappear because
they cannot support, maybe, or?
Well, actually, sometimes grief and this kind of hardship is too much of a mirror for their own pain or something they haven't dealt with, that they've got to run away from it.
Okay.
And they don't have capacity. And it's not like we go, they're not my friend anymore. We just need to understand they don't have capacity.
Okay.
It just leads me on to another thought. It's called disenfranchised grief. Now, I don't know if
What's
you,
that?
okay, I don't know if you may have experienced this. People saying the most crazy things to you when you're going through such a hard time. Like, here's one of them. You know, everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let me be the first person to slap someone who says that for anyone going through a loss or such a difficult time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, try and tell a mother who's losing a child that everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Please, please, if you have anyone going through this, don't say things
Mm-hmm.
like this to them. And don't worry about it. It's all going to turn out okay in the end. You know,
Yes.
people think it's the right thing to say. They don't mean to be
Mean.
There's definitely not a meanness. They think they've heard it, and to them it makes sense because they haven't gone through something like this. And it's almost like they're minimizing and not allowing the person in front of them to go through this terrible grief that they're experiencing. They're trying to make it better.
Yes, to ease the pain.
And it doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, just let me know if you need anything. Please don't say that. Be specific.
Yes.
Can I help you with something that you are finding difficult to do right now? Can I fetch the children from school? Do you need me to cook something for dinner? Is there something that you particularly like to eat that I can cook for you? Just tell me which day you would like it. Be specific. Does the car need petrol? Are there specific groceries that you need? Is someone flying in? I'll fetch them from the airport for you. Mm-hmm. Whatever it might be, ask for specifics. The person going through trauma is not going to think of, unless, you know, it might just happen right then and there. Let me know if you need anything. It doesn't work like that. They don't even know what they need themselves, but you've asked them specifically, they'll be able to tell you.
Yes, by the way, it reminds me of someone that once told me that sometimes people invite, you say, you're welcome whenever you want, but they never say the exact date and time, okay? But so you're welcome, but it really doesn't mean this way, you know? So
yeah, specifics are so important.
Yes, and especially, by the way, I think my husband, he was very keen that I will be the main caregiver. Like, it's only me that could take him to this and to that. It was very, you know, he didn't want support from someone else. And then at a certain point in time, people started to say, okay, maybe you want me to take you to the MRI check, or maybe I can bring you whatever, and I can take you whenever you want. Just tell me. And I think this a bit, I mean, what I'm saying, that it's very, very important what you're saying for the other people around, because they're also around. They're not the main caregiver. And it's very important to people to realize that they can be helpful even in very, very difficult and difficult situation. There could always be a support.
I found that too, because my husband had kidney cancer that then went to the lungs and then everywhere else in the body. And I was his main caregiver. At the same time, I was, you know, a partner in a business in advertising, and I had my 3 children. But fortunately, my mother-in-law, his mother, moved in with us. So it was so wonderful to have her there. But I bathed him. I helped him with personal things. I fortunately also had my PA, who actually is also since just very recently died. But she was amazing, because there were times where he was in the hospital and she went to fetch him, and so that I could attend to the children and attend to my business. It was sometimes, when I look back, you know, all those balls that I was juggling up in the air, I think, how did I do it? But we do it because every day had a structure. I had a really strong support team around,
which is
important. You know, found a little bit of sunshine somewhere every day.
But I still have a question about the structure.
Yes.
In our case, I lost all structure, because, like, okay, tomorrow we need to go to a MRI check, and then suddenly there is a metastasis in the head. So you need to have an appointment on the following day to this. I couldn't get structure. So how can you have structure in such a situation when you're old and you don't have, like, kids or something which is structured by
every
definition?
day still needs a structure. You need to find time to eat, to get groceries, to cook, to bath. and a little bit of time just for your own headspace. So whatever's happening that day, suddenly there's the MRI, then there's another doctor check, and then within that space, you've got to think about yourself. Maybe while he's having the MRI, you pop your headphones in, you do your meditation. You go online, you order the groceries, you call your support team, your 3 front row friends, and you go, I'm not going to get back in time to fetch whatever it is. Please, could someone organize dinner for me? Oh, I forgot. There's something arriving at the house. Could somebody please make sure it goes inside? You ask your neighbor. You've got to get good at thinking about the next step and asking someone else to help you through that, and going, what am I doing for myself today that is going to help me? Even when the one you're caring for is going through a procedure, make sure you've got an audible book, an audio book that you can listen to, so you can just have some time with yourself.
For yourself.
Exercise is so important. Just that walk. Get out for a walk. Get some headspace. It becomes part of the daily structure. It's like, okay, with all this going on, I'm not going to have my walk now. When I get back and that's settled, I'm going to go just, even if it's 20 minutes, for my walk. You move your structure around to accommodate all the crazy that's happening. That's structure. Doesn't matter what age we are, who we have in our life. We can be old, we can be young. Everything has to have a structure so that you can take care of yourself. Your structure is your oxygen mask.
Okay. I think, by the way, this is a good tip in life, for even not in like every situation, to have these 3 S's.
I have it every single day because there is so much I have to do every day. Aside from seeing my clients, I'm publishing a book next year, many things that are happening in my business. And then I have a partner. I still have my 3 children. I have a dog. I have my garden. I run a home. I'm a friend.
You're a woman.
There you go. That too. Yes. With all these things and the different hats that we wear. So without my structure, you and I would not be sitting here right now.
Yes.
With both of us having this in our daily structure.
So that's a very important thing to be aware of.
To live a full life and a good life.
Even in the stages where someone is sick,
yes,
or maybe if you know that you're getting divorced, for example, for 1 year or 2, whatever, it's also a sort of grief.
Completely.
Because we lost something normal or a routine that we have had, and we know that something is going to change in our life.
Yeah.
Can we be prepared in some other ways for that? Can we plan something?
Okay.
What would be done next? Sorry.
No. I have found that the same grief process happens when someone dies and when a relationship ends.
Really?
Yes. If a relationship ends suddenly, the same thing happens. There's the initial shock or the denial. I can't believe this. I remember sitting in front of the urologist with my husband, and he said it's kidney cancer. Now, I heard the words. The impact and the understanding of it was just too much to comprehend. I've had a relationship end, and when I heard those words, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to leave. It was like those same words, from the doctor.
Really?
My head heard the words it was my second marriage, my ex-husband saying that, and the utter shock that went into my system, that my system suddenly experienced. And then there was the bargaining, which is the second grief stage that is mentioned by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the if onlys, I call them. If only, and I wish I had, or I wish, and then there could be an anger. For me, anger doesn't come easily. Then there's that depressed state, or the depression. Then there's eventually an acceptance, and there's another grief stage called meaning. I take tremendous meaning from the death of my husband. It's why I do the work I do. and I help people to find meaning in their lives. I've taken tremendous meaning from the ending of my marriage. Now, the most important thing to understand is those grief stages don't happen. First, there's the denial, and then the bargaining, and then you can go from denial to the bargaining to the anger to the acceptance to meaning. Definitely is that last grief stage, but they can jump around. You can go into acceptance because it's also like a form of denial. But I have observed both of those stages playing out with the loss, of someone dying, the loss of someone you love, something you love, to a relationship ending. And when shock sets in, it's almost a way of protecting us for what we need to deal with next. But again, we go back to structure, support, sunshine. And there are times where we need to pull in professional support from others who've gone through, from someone who specializes in helping somebody through trauma, through grief. I was very, very blessed because, so many of my friends are therapists and coaches, and I was surrounded by so much love and support. My friend Vicky arrived here. I was catatonic in pajamas when my marriage ended. And she knocked on the door. She said, "I'm here to help you." I have a girlfriend, Sharon, who's a therapist, who was wonderful. She said to me, "What do you need?" I said to her, "Please just tell me I'm going to be okay." She used to phone me 3 times a day.
And say you would be okay?
She'd say, "How are you feeling? What do you need?" "I'm telling you, you're going to be okay." Just hearing someone that, say to me, "You're going to be okay." And I trusted her. Why shouldn't I? She's a therapist, she's a professional, and someone who really cares.
But this is really surprising, because when someone is dying, he disappears from your life forever.
Yes.
When you are divorced, he's still around, he's still alive. You can talk to him,
Well, sometimes you can't.
Yes.
Especially if they have a new partner in their lives, for whatever reasons. When someone has been thinking of ending a relationship, they don't just wake up that Tuesday morning and say, "Oh, today's a good day to end my relationship." And they've been thinking about it for some time. So for the person who is ever hopeful, who is in it and thinking everything's okay, to suddenly hear that is a terrible shock. And then that person can change completely. You can be so connected to someone one day, and in the years that I've been doing this coaching, I hear the same story. "I don't know them. They've changed. I look into their eyes. These are dead eyes, the eyes that don't connect with me anymore." An ex moves off into a new life, and the person who's left behind needs to pick up those pieces, because actually the picture of their life has changed.
Completely.
It's shattered, and now they need to find different puzzle pieces and put them together to create a new picture for a life moving forward. So the old vision has ended. We now need to create a new vision for a new life. The same as when a partner dies or someone we really love dies. The vision of life is shattered. We need to create a new vision.
So maybe it's the understanding that we need to understand in advance, once you turn older, let's say, not as a kid maybe, but that our life are chapters. I mean, you cannot expect that your life will be like very smooth and easy and everything will be okay all along the way. That's part of life. I read in a book. Otherwise, if you have no challenges or problems, it means you're dead. And, so maybe
there are very few people I've ever met who haven't had big challenges or big obstacles. A lot of our joy comes from overcoming them. We can't imagine it when we're going through it. We get to the other side and we look back and we see all those stepping stones that have brought us to where we are now. And there's someone I follow and tremendously admire. There's a man called Jamie Smart. And although I didn't have a lot of time to speak to him, that one day when, after my marriage had ended, we were on the phone, and he had gone through a similar experience 8 years previously. And he said, and those words were what I hung on to for hope, "I never imagined I'd be living my best life now 8 years ago. So when we're going through it, it's so hard to imagine that we'll even be happy again. And that's what I always say to the person sitting in front of me. I promise you, you're going to be okay. I promise you, you will be happy again. There are very specific steps you need to take. You need to be determined to work through what you're going through, because having a great life doesn't just happen. It's what we make of it.
You need to work for having that.
You need to really sit down and look at what your vision looks like for a future and take steps to get there.
But there is a but. What happens in case you lose a child for a disease or something, or your child, God forsake, dies?
Yeah.
Or maybe I hear in many divorce cases where a kid would not talk with his parent, one of them.
Okay.
No, this is something else.
It's a great question. I've worked with parents who've lost children so that they can create a new vision. Personally, I believe, and this is with no disrespect to anyone listening to this, because I know your loss is profound, but I have observed my mother-in-law lost her son, my husband. It was a tremendous loss for her. We're very, very close. She's still my mother-in-law, even though I have the most wonderful relationship I've been in for a long time. And I still call her my mother-in-law. She really worked very hard every day to find happiness and meaning in her life. And it was the first 2 years were unbearable to see her pain. And she's a very happy woman today.
How many years have passed?
18.
18, okay.
So, with no disrespect to anyone going through loss, I believe the loss of a child is possibly the worst loss. And I have worked with parents who've lost their children. And they have gone on to create lives full of meaning in memory of the child who is no longer here. With, a case recently, we have a friend whose child ended her life at the age of 13, a young girl. And a few months later, his wife died. He has gone through the most profound loss. And I've watched his resilience and his determination and his pain and his grief and his everything. And every day he gets up and, he's now working very hard on a special mission, something that caused the daughter's loss and for her to, end her life, where he's determined to uncover things and to bring to light to help other parents. So he has a purpose again. I'm going to go back to the point of children who don't speak to their parents because one of the parents has possibly alienated the child from the other parent. I worked with a man who has been brilliant in business and, has accumulated a lot in his life and has been very successful in business. And he went through a divorce. His wife decided to divorce him and alienated the 3 children from him, which has been incredibly painful. And he's had very little contact. He still supports them financially. And the grief process, it took 2 years working with him with that tremendous pain from him being alienated from these children that he loves so much. And he has since remarried. She has a daughter, and he's found a new meaning in his life. He's created a new foundation within the business that supports young entrepreneurs and young people who maybe don't have the financial means to achieve what they need to. So he's found a way of harnessing that pain and created that meaning in being in enabling the lives of young people. While he, has a wonderful relationship now, and is a happy man again. Of course, my wish is that his children do, as they get older, come back to him. We don't know what the future holds. There is always hope, and these challenges can be almost insurmountable. And yet we just keep taking those next steps and next steps. And
but it sounds like this specific man, for example, was busy with work, or it is not just work, it's a work with a meaning.
Yeah, he's made meaning, he created meaning from this. And he has found a way to move forward, to bring meaning to the lives of others and joy to the lives of others. So it hasn't been easy. No one has ever said that going through these things is easy. We don't have a choice. We keep taking the next step. And sometimes, you want to just pull the duvet over your head and stay there. And some days we do that. It doesn't mean that because we have structure and support and sunshine that we don't just pull the duvet over our heads and we go, oh, it's okay, today I'm not going to grieve. And, sometimes you go, I can't get up. And sometimes that's okay. It is okay. It doesn't mean that every day we've got to have a spring in our step and go, right, I have a purpose. Or I'm going to do this and it's going to be okay. No, we grieve and we carry on. And some days we just don't. And there were days where I just thought, I can't do today. And I have clients who say, I spent 2 days in bed. I did. My mother-in-law tells a story. She lay on her bed and she thought, maybe I'll die. This pain without my son being here. And she lay on her bed for 2 days. She didn't move.
Whoa.
I think she sipped some water. That was about it. And then she said on the third morning, she got up. She made a cup of coffee. She took a walk on the beachfront and she cried. And she cried. She got back home. She had her shower. She got dressed. And that was her routine every morning. She used to make a cup of coffee, go walk on the beachfront and cry for an hour, get back, have her shower, and carry on with her day. She made time for her grief. We do not want to put the grief under the carpet and carry on and not deal with it, because those things become like landmines under the carpet. We're going to step on something some way, and we must deal with what we're going through. Journaling is a wonderful, wonderful way to deal with grief. I remember the early days of my journaling. I wrote down this first line, today I could breathe. That was my journal entry for the day. Today I could breathe. There was a journal entry of like, why did I wake up today? Why did I wake up today? The pain was so bad. And journaling is a wonderful way of documenting the grief and looking back to see how far we've come. I have clients who say to me, I think I've just gone back to the beginning. Nothing's changed. And I go, really? I said, do you remember those early days where those waves of grief came and they knocked you flat and you couldn't get up? And as you were just standing up, there was another wave. And I go, is it like this now? And they go, no, you're right, it's different. And yeah.
But maybe it's just time that does the work for us, by the way?
No, it isn't.
This is not true what they say, time will solve all your problems? No.
What we do and how we do it makes it even better. There are a lot of people who relied on the time will heal.
Yes.
Is time a healer, or is it just getting on with life and living life and dealing with the feelings and speaking about what we're feeling that helps heal more? Having someone in front of us who can hold that sacred space for us to speak about what we're feeling is a wonderful thing. A friend, a therapist, a coach, even the dog.
The dog, okay.
My dog was the most wonderful. I used to look into her eyes and just talk to her and tell her how I was feeling. And she listened.
Okay, good. Yes, dogs are they're very in favor of, you can tell them everything. They won't tell, huh?
They don't say nothing.
I hope you just not ruin the psychiatry field, the psychology field now.
Remember, I had a therapist as well.
Okay.
And great friends, yeah. But a dog is, if you connect to a dog and you have a dog, it's a wonderful thing.
Yes. Cats also, maybe, sometimes.
Indeed.
by the way, I'm going a bit away to statistics from people you've seen or you met. Is there a typecast in grief? I mean, can you divide people to optimistic, those are holding grudge, despair? I mean, is there some statistics about it, or?
Okay, I'll go back just to a foundation. Have you heard of attachment styles?
No.
Okay, this is what develops early in childhood, and I'm not going to go into it in too much detail.
Okay.
Our caregivers, namely our parents, are either very responsive, respond to the baby crying and are always there and taking care of the baby's needs. Sometimes they can be inconsistent. Sometimes they can be very unpredictable. An attachment to the caregiver is what a bond that develops with the baby. If your parents are consistent, you can have a securely attached child. If they're inconsistent, you could have an anxiously attached child. If they're unpredictable, you could have anxious, you could have an avoidantly attached child. Maybe there's just so much love smothered on the child, there's no space. And there's also something called they call the disorganized attachment style. And I have noticed that individuals who are anxiously attached, everybody goes through grief, but the anxiously attached ones really take longer to overcome this, because that attachment is kind of like severed within inside them, and they desperately crave the connection. And when the connection ends, my work with them is more intense.
More complex?
Yes. Yeah.
But do you know this in advance, by the way? The type of person that comes?
Obviously I can pick it up. I can hear it in the phone call when I have a discovery call. I can't, there's just one of me. I can't work with everybody, but I can pick that up in the phone call. You pick up an anxious attachment style, and how they are when they come in and sit down.
This is another important lesson for young parents.
Yeah.
Yet you need to be very...
my daughter said to me, I have a grandson, he's 3, and in the early, months, she said to me, Mom, I'm so scared, I'm going to mess things up. I said to her, sweetheart, without a doubt you are. Don't worry about it. We all have our journey. She's the most amazing, amazing mother. She's a speech and language therapist. She has a lot of awareness. We can never get it right. It would never be perfect, but we must get a lot of knowledge. There's so much knowledge available. And for anyone who doesn't know what their attachment style is, there's a wonderful book called Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller.
Okay.
And it'll give you a good indicator as to what your attachment style is. There are many books written for parents about this. And find out what your own attachment style is and your style of parenting. The most important thing with parenting is not necessarily when we get it wrong. It's the repair. How do we reconnect? Reconnection and repair. We get something wrong, we shout at the child, or we show irritation going to the child, and no matter how old they are or young they are, going, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I shouted at you. It's not your fault. I was feeling irritated. I'm a little stressed, but it's not your fault. I'm really sorry. Find the way to repair.
I think in every relationships, no? Not only with the kids, with partners, and with everybody.
That's what makes for a successful relationship. Conflict and triggers in relationship are normal. Most people don't know how to do the repair and the reconnection. And in teaching my couples to be present to one another, because only one person can have their needs met in any conflict at the time. So imagine if we were in conflict, one of us would need to be present to hear what's happening for the other before the other could come and say, okay, well, how do you feel? So we need to be present, one person at a time. And then we can reverse the process. We can't both have our needs met automatically. Yes, but you always never becomes all the blame and the criticism. And we know that criticism, defensiveness, the shutting off, the stonewalling and contempt are relationship destructors, whether it's with our children, our friends, our loved ones, our partner.
So it's a good advice in life in general.
Repair, reconnect, listen to the other person, be curious about what's going on for them, leave your own stuff behind in your world while you're listening to them, and then help them to be present to your world. Speak in short sentences so they can hear you.
Short sentences is important, especially I think with the younger generation, because they're very short sentences. They don't use I don't think many read books today like young people. So maybe the short thing is even more important with the young ones.
Especially in conflict, for the emotional ear to hear, we need to keep it short to get a point across.
Interesting. Maybe you could have solved many political conflicts, by the way.
Well,
I want to summarize.
Yes.
But I heard from Judy that introduces both that most or all the people that came to you, they get married afterwards. It's true, and you go to many weddings.
I do.
Okay.
No,
So
you know, my partner's Israeli, so every time he hears about a black tie wedding, he goes, "Oh, he got another black tie wedding."
So what's the magic? I mean, I'm not sure if it's magic. Not everybody wants to get married, but okay.
Everybody wants to be connected and to have a special relationship. So if someone dies or your relationship dies, when we find that foundation of I like my life again, and we're ready to find a new relationship, I help my clients to find the right relationship. There's no perfect, there's right. And I have very specific formulas for identifying the right relationship.
For this specific person.
Absolutely, because what you love and you value in your life may be different to what they love and value in their lives. And the type of person you'll need to find needs to share your highest values. So when I was looking for my partner, I went by very specific tick boxes. I wanted someone who really values their health, who exercises, who is kind, who is generous, who is financially stable, and someone who'd been to therapy. Those were my 6 highest values, because I am this person. I value my health. I am kind, I am generous, and must love dogs, because I love dogs. And I knew that if I found a man who'd been to therapy, he'd be open to working on himself. He'd be open to working on our relationship. I can only be with someone who is prepared to have a great relationship, because great relationships don't just happen. They are made.
You need to work on that.
And I have a man who is with me. He is prepared to do the work. Doesn't mean we don't have conflict. It doesn't mean we don't have triggers. And this is what I teach my clients: how to prepare to be a great partner, how to choose someone who shares their values. And, then it's up to them. Do they want to get married? Do they want to have children? Do they want to just live together? Whatever it is that they want, they find someone who's willing to do that too.
By the way, I have this notion, that maybe I'm wrong, but I think that women have more tendency towards therapy than men, or it's not true?
Women do share more. Women do speak more. Look how women connect with their girlfriends on a deeper emotional level. Traditionally, historically, men have been taught not to express their feelings. Boys don't cry, which is like one of the worst things we can do to our little boys, not to show emotion, to be emotionally disallowing. And also in our families of origin, if we were not encouraged to share emotion and to express our needs, and we were shut down and our needs weren't important, of course, this is going to reflect in our intimate relationships. I have many men who contact me. My practice, is men and women. Sometimes it's more men than women. Sometimes it's more couples and individuals. And I work all over the world. I work, if I'm not in Bahrain, I'm in Saudi. I even have a client in Iran, which is such sacred work for me. And I feel, and then suddenly I'm in South America, and then, in South Africa. So worldwide, we are wired to have connection and to find love. And it's such joy for me when my individuals who were brokenhearted are living a life they love, and then they find that love that really is so very special.
So the next wedding in, I don't know, will be where?
The next wedding, I think we have, I've actually put a little list together on Instagram of what 2022 has been. And we've had, I think, about 7 or 8 engagements.
Whoa.
So weddings will be happening next year. And I'm so joyful, and I'm so happy, and my clients are so happy. So, yeah, it's really wonderful.
It sounds really, like that life keeps on going, keep on going.
That is the magical thing. So for anyone who finds that they're really stuck in grief, and for anyone who's been there for some time, who just doesn't see that, they could have, or the possibility that they could have a happy future, find someone to speak to. There are many amazing books. One of the books I often recommend is called Option B. Then there's another one by Julia Samuel called Grief Works. I've just finished reading, and I handed it over to you this morning, by Joan Didion, A Year of Magical Thinking. It was actually after the loss of her husband, how she had this year of magical thinking. And there's so many amazing people who have written, such powerful books about overcoming grief and hardship. So if you aren't able to access, a therapist or a coach, find the reading material that can help you.
So to summarize, when sometimes things end, it doesn't mean that your life is end, and there is like a light at the end of the tunnel, and you should seek for it, whatever you have to do, and just go for it.
Yeah, an ending is an opportunity for a new beginning, but we need to do the work. The most important thing to remember, that endings are an opportunity for new beginnings. And we need to work through the ending, not just bypass it. There's no way around grief. We've got to go through grief, and then we can start our new beginning.
Thank you. I learned a lot.
It's been so lovely being with you.
For me too. And I love your English. So I want to thank you again, Shelley Whitehead. And I hope the message goes on, and it will be conveyed to people that that are still stuck, or are still or sometimes people were in a stage of a really difficult situation. I hope they can hear you, and
that really is my wish for them as well. And I do understand this really dark place, and I also understand living a life where there is lots of light. They can find, lots of information. You can go on my YouTube, Instagram, and reach out. I do work with my own messages and social media. I will reply.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Many thanks to Shelley Whitehead. You have listened to the podcast The Caregiver by Ronit Schwartz-Shamai. Do you know caregivers to whom this podcast may help? Please share this link with them. Also, you may follow this podcast by pressing the follow button at the top of this podcast. Thank you.
The Caregiver,